Hey folks, well you saw me revise the Derptop earlier this year. Well, it's an end of the era for the first iteration of the Derptop. It's been through, I think, 3 or 4 motherboards, probably 4 motherboards at this point. And as you can see, I've stripped the case, I've taken all the parts out of it, and we're going to be, this is the last remaining part of the original Derptop. It is going away and being replaced with this guy here. This is a Rosewill case. In fact, I have the box here. I won this on eBay for $30 in an auction, which is pretty cool. It's called the La Cube. It's an RSMI01 black. You can buy these on Newegg for like $50 or something. It seems like a decent case for what it is. It offers everything that I want. Came with some cables, screws, feet. Looks like it uses rails as well. I don't know if you actually need them or not. A little PC speaker there, and a bunch of screws and stuff, and pinouts. So this is the new case for the Derptop. We're actually using the 4th iteration's hardware platform, which is an H61 Intel ITX board here with 8 gigs of RAM and a Core i3-2105. So you do get HD 3000 out of the graphics. We're going to be using a 500 gigabyte hard drive there, a wireless card, a TP-Link wireless N card, I believe that is, and we're going to be replacing the stock power supply with this 350 watt Seasonic I've had lying around. And this thing, some of you longtime subscribers might remember this from when I tried to build the transfer build in that white case. So, yeah, that's a thing. I think I should move this into the light and we should take a better look at it. Okay, so we have this case here. Pretty simple. It's just plastic on the front. There's some glossy stuff here. There's a power button there. There's a door on the side here. It reveals USB and audio, so that's pretty convenient. And it uses these little clips that are not unlike the things that hold a CD player door shut, if you guys remember those from back in the day. Here you have a 3.5-inch bay, which can be internal or external. I am probably going to keep it internal if I can. I don't know if I'll be able to get that drive in there. If not, I'll put a different drive in and you'll see which drive that is. And the top one's basically an optical drive bay. You open this and, yeah. Back of the case, this is a mini ITX case. As you can see, it came with a power supply, which, you see this voltage selector switch? That's how you can immediately tell this uses an old design for the power supply. This power supply itself might be the subject of a video later, because I've seen reviews where people say these power supplies fail. And it doesn't surprise me because it looks cheap and it uses old circuitry, because when you see one of these power supplies with a voltage selector switch, that means it doesn't have active PFC, so it uses, a pretty old design, which the old designs are fine, but when they use an old design in 2016, that usually means they cheaped out. But anyway, here's the back of the case. You have your power supply up top. You have the back I/O of your motherboard sticking out there, and you have one slot, which is where that wireless card is going to go. If this board had an X16 slot on it, like I wish it did instead of this X1 slot, if I could find it. There's the X1 slot. There's the X1 slot. So it has enough to use the wireless card behind it, but not much other than that. So that's unfortunate, but HD 3000 is good enough for what I need this computer for. Here's the inside of the machine. I untwisted a bunch of the stuff out of the way so you could see. Now this I have to show you on this power supply. That's pretty good. It has a couple of SATA connectors. The wiring is very thin. Very, very thin. Has to be like 18 gauge wire, maybe 20 gauge if you're lucky. So this power supply is definitely coming out. It is a piece of junk. Look at this. They make a big deal about the P4 connector, which nowadays you'd call CPU power. Back in the day it was called the Pentium 4 connector. And you can tell this design is very old, at least 10 years old, if not older than that. So that's the first thing that's coming out. You have to take the power supply out anyway to put the board in. So, you know, you might as well. Well, I guess you don't have to, but it makes it easier. So we're going to take this power supply out, and then we're going to take a look at it. Okay, I've got the Rosewill power supply out, and as you can see, it's very tiny and made of cheap metal. Compare that with the Seasonic 350 watt that I have here that has an active PFC connection. As you can see, there's no switch on the back. It's universal voltage pretty much. And it's much longer because it's just built better. It's nice and heavy. This thing is, well, not too light, but it's light enough that I can tell it's cheap. So what do you have for specs? Let's check it out. If you want to read these, I would pause to read them for the most part. So you have 16 amps on the 12-volt rail. The Seasonic has 18, and there's only one 12-volt rail. There's actually two 12-volt rails on the Seasonic, so this is clearly a much better built power supply than the other one. And the thing about this case that I kept reading reviews on is that you see how there's a fan on the bottom? That would fight the CPU fan on the motherboard. So the Seasonic eliminates that problem because there's no fan on the bottom anywhere. It's on the back, and the ventilation is in the back of the supply. So that actually will improve airflow dramatically for the whole thing. So that's fantastic. This supply I'm probably going to save. We might open it up and take a look at it in a separate video. But this proves this is a rule of thumb. When you buy a case and it comes with a power supply, don't trust it. If you have to use it for a while, fine, but I would replace it sooner rather than later, because these cheap supplies don't have very good protection circuitry most of the time and can take out the computer you're using when they go. So, you know, when you buy a case, steer clear. Even if it comes with a power supply, buy a separate one. It's just a good idea. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick my hardware and the board in and then give you a look-see right after. Okay, so I've installed a bunch of hardware in this computer. I wanted to put an optical drive in here, but the first problem I ran into is that my Seasonic power supply here is too long. It doesn't let you put the supply in, so the only one that actually fit was the Rosewill one. So I thought, maybe I should use this just because it fits and lets me use everything. So I decided to open up the power supply and take a look at it to make sure the circuitry was okay. And I have to admit, the circuitry actually doesn't look too bad. You know, it has filtering, it has all that stuff, it has coils, it has a bridge rectifier that's an actual chip and not just 4 diodes. There's some pretty beefy caps in there. But what do I notice on the output right away? Let me get my scissors here. If you look at that capacitor right there, see that little bit there's a little bit of electrolyte on the top of it. And there's also another one just behind it, right there, that has electrolyte coming out of the top of it and is domed and bulged. There are bad capacitors out of the box in this power supply. Out of the box! It is bad out of the box. This, folks, is why you don't use power supplies that come with cases, because this hasn't been used yet, and it's already bad because it used cheap capacitors. I'm not going to get rid of this. I bet you if I recap this power supply, it will work fine. But that just goes to show you, they don't build these things very well. So I'm definitely not going to use that. I think it's worth recapping this thing. You know, I might do that down the road just because it's a useful power supply. I mean, I do like its size, but clearly that's where they skimped on the quality. So the circuitry looks pretty good actually, but the quality of the capacitors is bad. Which in my situation is ideal because I can just replace the capacitors and be on my way. But since that's bad out of the box, I'm not going to use it. So what I'm going to have to do here is take the optical drive out. Oh, I should make note, in the power supply it has a sleeve bearing fan in the power supply. Very, It brags about that. So I got to take this optical drive out, which is very hard to get out of here. Actually, if you look at it, I have to really tug it out. And the hard drive just fits in right down below it, so 500 gigs sitting right there, doing its thing. Now, I've read in reviews of this case that if you have a stock Intel cooler, in some cases it won't fit. It barely fits in this case. If I put the power supply in, either the Rosewill one or the Seasonic one, it basically rests right on top of it. It does fit. Yeah, there we go. I have to kind of cajole it in there a little bit. I mean, yeah. There you go. There you go. Now it fits in. It's lined up with the screws. It basically, with the stock 1155 cooler, it sits right on top of it. So if you had a power supply like this with the fan facing the bottom, you'd be kind of screwed because it would be fighting with the CPU fan the whole time. And what I'm probably going to do is, since the side of this case has some holes in it, I'm probably going to help it out a little bit and stick a fan on one side of the case. I'm thinking the right side, just because that's where it was on the old case, and it's not too crowded there. See, there's not a whole lot going on this side, so it's kind of the perfect place to add some ventilation, some outward ventilation, so it comes in through the front or through the other side or whatever, and you have ventilation out of the system. So I'm going to do that, I think. Add a little bit of ventilation to this, even though it wasn't designed for it, and you know, be on my merry way with it. But yeah, it's a shame I can't fit an optical drive in there, not with this power supply. But I get the feeling that I'm not going to be using an optical drive on this system anyway, so I don't know. I'm going to work on this a little bit more, and I'll come back and show you. Okay. I got most of everything in here. I have attached a fan to this side of the case here, as you can see. It's one of those Antec double ball bearing fans with the speed control. The speed is on low to keep the machine quiet, because believe it or not, the fan in the back of this power supply is pretty quiet. Everything seems to fit in here. I have the wires tucked over the hard drive nicely. Some wires tucked under there. I've had to really position things so wires are out of the way in this case. I've noticed it's really cramped, but it's still a lot more space than that case. So I am going to button this back up. I've noticed when I put this thing back on with the fan in, you kind of have to bend the case a little bit. And plus, this actually has a pretty long cord, so I have to stuff the cord in there. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to maneuver this thing back together, and maybe you guys can watch. So, see, I have to get the cable in there as much as I can, so that it doesn't get stuck in the fan. And I have to bring it back. Yeah, I have to like bend it a certain way, and then it'll fit. Yeah, I don't think I'm squashing a wire. I don't think I am. Anyway, let me double check. No, it's fine. No, it's fine because I'm pushing the case forward, so there shouldn't be any problem in terms of wires that snag or anything like that. And she's back together. It's just a cute little cube thing here. It's half of a cube. I'm sure you've seen some of these cases where it's like a full cube. This is an ITX build, so it's half of one. I love this. It's a cute little machine. The only thing I wish is that the board I was using had a PCI X16 slot, because that's the perfect vent for a graphics card. However, I would rather use a micro ATX cube for a build that advanced than a mini ITX cube, although it would be nice to use one of these for that. Problem with that is power supplies. I'd rather use, if I was going to do a full spec build, I would be using something that would take possibly maybe another SFX power supply or a full ATX one. But this is good enough, so I'm going to put this back together, and I'm going to screw it all back together. Alright, this thing's buttoned up and all back together, and I figure we should have a look-see, just make sure it works. I know it works because I tested it earlier, but I'm going to turn it on and show you what it looks like working, so let's do it. Very small, very non-intrusive LEDs. F2, that's it. Okay, we're in the BIOS now. Listen to this computer. It is so quiet. And this computer has a spinning disk in it, 500 gigs, as you heard. This fan here is nice and nice and quiet, since it's on the low setting and it gets air out. I think the only sound you're hearing is the fan and the Seasonic power supply. It's very quiet, so this should be a nice, quiet running machine. Here's the BIOS on this Intel motherboard. I forget the model number of the Intel motherboard, but down in the specs list in the description, I'll probably put the board model there. This is the processor I have in it. It's a Core i3-2105, which is a really good chip, as those of you who watch my channel for long enough know. These chips, the 05 at the end means that it has HD Graphics 3000 on it instead of the 2000. So this thing actually does have a little bit of graphics horsepower in it. So there you have it. It has 8 gigs of RAM in it, just perfect. And the time and date appear to be correct. Fantastic. What do we have here? Fan control there. Let's check the voltages of this power supply. They look like they're in spec to me. Yeah, they are. You can overclock CPUs with this board, which is nice. Intel virtualization's on. Boot order. Optical drives, removable drives, hard drives. So it's definitely in the right spot. I don't have an optical drive in there. Yep. I have UEFI boot turned off because that's just better with Linux. So you can do an F12 for network boot on these. It's just hidden. That's interesting. So, onboard devices, parallel port, front panel audio, USB, numlock. So you can turn all these devices off individually. SATA is on AHCI mode. That's what you want. There's the Western Digital 500 gig hard drive there. There are 3 SATA ports on this machine, and I believe there is one more. I don't know if it's an mSATA slot or it's just a PCIe slot, a mini one. It's probably just PCIe at this point. You can have event logging for video. Video is on the on the CPU, so there you go. There it sees it's on an X1 slot. Yeah, actually that little slot that's on the motherboard, there's a little mini slot on the board. I think it's just a PCIe X1 slot, which could take a wireless card that's just a tiny little card. Which, you know, I could do, but I happen to have a wireless card already, so I really don't have a need to do that. But there you go. The system works, it boots. I forget if this hard drive even has anything on it. It might not, or it might. Let's see. Oh, it has Windows on it. Perfect. Let's see if it crashes. So maybe I can show you some software. Maybe it's just a trial version that's out of date. I have no idea. Oh my God, it's working. Alright. Let's see if it tells me to activate or not. I don't even remember what was on this hard drive when I was using it before. Oh, you know what this might have been? I might have been using this for converting SWF files to videos. I bet you anything that's what this was. Let's check out the hard drive LED. Yeah, it's basically just on. That's exactly what this is. How about that? Yep. So I have a Windows 7 installation on here. Let me grab a mouse real quick. Looks like this is a genuine copy of Windows that's on here. Windows is activated. It was called Derptop because it was on the old, in that old case, which has been taken out to the garbage now. That thing's long gone. So I have a full working install on here already, actually. I forgot what I had even used this thing for. I think I used it to convert some Flash stuff to video. So that's cool. Excellent, man. That's pretty cool. So I was able to show you guys what's in here after all. I think this device driver thing here has some complaining to do. Or it has a few complaints, I should say. Yeah, let's take a look at Device Manager. I think the wireless card is making it complain. So I might have to install the drivers for that. But other than that, it looks like it's good to go. How funny is that? Yeah, it doesn't see that. So I have to install that stuff. But other than that, this thing is working. How about that? I forgot I even had an installation on here. Well, there you go, folks. That is the new Derptop. I'm going to call this the Derptop 2.0. In fact, let's make that official, shall we? Let's call it 2. Just 2. There you go. It's called Derptop 2 now. The second iteration is alive. It's alive, and it's much better than the original. Much, much better. So this is a nice machine now. It's got a Seasonic power supply. It's got a nice Intel motherboard with a nice i3 in it, with some modifications to the case, some pretty good ventilation, a wireless card. So this is a really good little computer. Very happy with it. So let's give you a last look at the front, and then we'll end the video there. So, I hope you guys enjoyed seeing the new iteration of the Derptop 2.0. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I certainly did. This was a lot of fun to build. I've never actually had one of these cases before, and I actually really like these. I'd love to build more machines in these cases. Micro ATX, I think. Because I have micro ATX stuff, I might put more micro ATX builds in cube cases like this, but the ITX ones are cute and small like this, and I really like that. It would make a great computer to just stick right under a monitor. It'd be fantastic for that. But, you know, there you go. That's it for now. Hope you enjoyed the video, and have a good one, everybody. Ciao.